My name is Vangie, Canonizado, Buell, and I was born in California, San Pedro, and at age 6 months brought up to West Oakland, where I was raised, and lived in West Oakland and Berkeley all of my life. I would say that because we were of a mixed group in West Oakland, it was okay. But at times it was hard to be Filipina outside of West Oakland because people didn't know who we were, what we were. And especially during the war, when we had to wear buttons that said, "I am a loyal Filipino American." Otherwise, we would have been extremely discriminated against. I mean, we saw signs on the doors here in the early California years, no Filipinos or dogs allowed. And these are in restaurants and hotels and stores, and you'd see these all over. And in our high school, they felt that because many of us of color would not get jobs in professional jobs. And so they changed the English class to have us learn how to wash and dry clothes and use special ironing machines. And that was our English class. And the students that were in that class were Mexican, me, Filipino, and African American. But they didn't put the Italians in there or the Portuguese because they were white. So we had some wonderful teachers who just was so against that system that they tutored us after school on their own time so we could get into college. And that's how I was able to go to college. I remember when the Japanese were taken away from our neighborhood because they lived in, they were really close friends with my grandmother, and I can remember her crying at the time when they were taken away on the buses. We saw the buses when they were taken away. And then right after that, we all had to wear the buttons. Some of the older Filipino women would come to visit us, and they chewed betel nut, which I couldn't stand, and this is the stuff that would drip down their their chins with this red betel juice, and they would chew this and just talk up a storm as they were chewing and grinding their betel nuts in these little mortar and pestle, and they would squat to do this. No chairs, no stools, they'd squat to do that. Thank goodness my grandmother didn't chew betel nut. What she did instead was smoke her cigarette backwards with the lid inside her mouth. This is how they smoked their cigarettes, the older women particularly. And would be the lid in, and that would be in their mouths. And they would continue talking, just like this, with this in their mouths. And fascinating. And of course my daughters were fascinated with it. My youngest daughter came home one day with a bunch of kids, and they were peering through the living room door, French door, and my grandmother was sitting there with me, and we were talking, and I noticed all these kids peering in the door, and I said, "What in the world are they doing there?" And outside, Stacy had charged each one of her friends a quarter to come and watch Grandma smoke with the fire in her mouth. This custom started in the Philippines on the rice plantations, and many of them who worked on the plantations were covered in water because that's how you work in the fields with rice. It's up to here. So their hands were wet, and so when they had a cigarette break, they would just keep the cigarette in their mouths, and also it kept them warm. When we first started our period, and I was very young, maybe about 10, in order to have it be only to last 3 days rather than 7 days, we had to go down the stairs 3 steps at a time and sit down and bounce our butts on the stair. Then you continue down the stair, 3 more stairs, and you bounce your butt on the stairs. And to them, that was superstitious. I mean, in terms of having a period that would only last 3 days. But it didn't really work. Not for me. It did for my cousin, so they believed in it. In February, I'm going to have a great-grandson be born. and he will be 12 nationalities. My family is all mixed now. However, in their mixture, they still will honor their Filipino side, because I helped them to do that. And my first husband, Hank, was gay, and we learned about it in the 5th year of our marriage after 3 children were born. And it was very difficult because we both loved each other very much, and he did not want to leave me, and I did not want to leave him. However, it just was not going to work out. Then I learned that my daughter, at age 13, was lesbian. And that was difficult for me, because knowing, about the situation then, how hard that was going to be socially. And so I know I just went through a lot of, emotions over that. However, we all kind of knew it, that she was different. I knew she was different from the time she was 2 years old. And so did other people. And so did some of our lesbian and gay friends. They all said, "Oh my God, she's a butch," at age 4. 25 chickens and a pig for a bride, growing up in an immigrant Filipino family. And the 25 chickens and the pig for a bride actually happened to me. So that's how the name came about. This is a story about my 18th birthday. And that was a custom to celebrate the 18th birthday of a young girl coming out into womanhood. So it was like our debut. Daddy and Manong Tommy sat down on the couch and began talking in Ilocano, occasionally switching over to Tagalog or English. Sisti and I took the chairs across from them and listened politely, as Grandma had taught us not to interrupt adult conversations. Meanwhile, Manong Tommy kept mopping his brow with the red handkerchief and sneaking glances in my direction. After a while, I noticed that Manong Tommy was eyeing me quite often, and it began to make me feel uncomfortable. I deliberately avoided looking at Sisti lest we burst into giggles, which would have been deemed impolite by our elders. Suddenly, fortified by summoned-up courage, Manong Tommy stood up, faced my dad, and said emphatically in English, "Your daughter, Evangeline, will be 18, and I beg you put her hand in marriage. I offer you, as a symbol of my love, for her 25 chickens and a pig for her birthday party to seal our engagement." Pointing to the front window, the diamond ring on his pinky glittering, he announced, "The chickens and a pig are in my car, waiting to be brought into the house." I could not believe my ears. My sister and I suddenly leaped from our chairs and ran to the front window. Sure enough, there was the pig, its head hanging limply over the rumble seat of the old Model T Ford, and the chickens lay in a heap on the back seat. And Sisti looked at me in disbelief and said, "He wants to trade you for a bunch of dead animals." And we could no longer contain ourselves and ran out of the room in a fit of laughter. This was just published in June of this year, and Evelyn Lulukison and I are the authors of this, as well as co-authors Lillian Gallardo and Ellie Louise. And the 4 of us put this together, and we took certain parts of it it's Filipinos in the East Bay, 100 years of their history here. It starts out with the Buffalo Soldiers and their families. And the Buffalo Soldiers are the African-American soldiers who went to the Philippines in 1898 to fight in the Spanish-American War. And they also fought in the Philippine American War right after that. And so about 6,000 Buffalo Soldiers went over, and 100 stayed behind. And one of them was my grandfather. Since this is the season of the holidays, I would like to just say to everyone, Maligayang Pasko, which is Happy New Year and Merry Christmas. And I will also like to say Mabuhay, that we all live well and long life.